explosion happened. Tank number 3 exploded, blew us to the ground. I remember looking back, nothing but just a big wall of fire. I could see a big oil tank way up there. I didn't know which way it was going to come down on us. We were just scrambling, and are we making it out of this alive? Am I going to lose any of my firemen? Pretty rough day, you know. Everybody made it through. Nobody's hurt. Our chaplain showed up, and we all got in a circle and we prayed. God took care of us today. He really did. So when we got here, had heavy fire coming out the top. You can see the lid to it blowing over in the woods. That was like that prior to our arrival. Our initial plan of action, talking with the operator, just keep the other tanks cool. We had water for approximately an hour and a half, spraying on the tanks, was monitoring with the thermal imaging cameras. Nothing changed, everything was staying cool. All of a sudden, the tank that was originally on fire went to boiling over. We think the salt water got hot, and we went boiling over, and then we had fire on top of both tanks. My guys went to retreating out, and I mean, it went to hissing. It was a matter of probably, I don't know, 2 or 3, 4 seconds. And next thing I know, I'm blowed on the ground, and I look back at the wall of fire, and I can see a tank way up in the air, and we're just climbing, we're just scrounging, trying to retreat. That's kind of in a nutshell what happened.
The fire department's up there spraying water on the tanks to try to keep one of the tanks from catching on fire, and all of a sudden the smoke gets darker, and when you can see the flames in the smoke about 20 feet above the trees, and I just knew something was fixing to happen. Next thing you know, one of the tanks goes flying through the air, and we was worried about it hitting the highway, and I was worried about the firemen because we heard the explosion and we felt it. We felt the percussion down here on the highway, and we felt the heat from the fire. So I was worried to death something done happened to somebody, and it's a miracle nothing happened. Everybody's safe, but to see that tank go flying through the air is like something on TV.
That's Highway 3 right there. And this is where that tank that exploded and went up in the air landed.
We were sitting there, everything looked normal. We were watching the smoke. All of a sudden we see a large column of fire above the trees, and heard a loud concussion and looked up and saw a tank. Now these tanks are pretty good size. It looked like a 55-gallon barrel flying through the air, and then it crashed down, and my first thought was, how many people have we lost?
That was my thought too, when I was scrounging on the ground trying to figure out that have I lost anybody. And then when I see the tank in the air and the heavy wall of fire, is the middle tank fixing to go, or we all fixing to burn up in here? Because I had heavy heat and fire on me, as you see my radio and my thermal imaging camera that I'd had in my hand that I had dropped. It didn't take long for it to get melted. Didn't know if we was gonna make it out of here. I didn't know my guys or myself. I thought today was it. Gonna wipe out pretty much my whole department. What I thought was fixing to happen.
I started, after I saw the fire and heard the explosion, I started calling for additional resources, put the helicopter on standby, get additional medic units en route, and waiting to hear from up here on the fire ground about injuries, and trying to do a personal accountability report. And once we got everybody out and equipment, there was no injuries, luckily. I mean, I'll be the first to say it was a hand of God protected everybody.
That is correct. God lives in North Bossier Parish, we believe.
We got the fingerprints and everything.
Yeah, I reached there and grabbed it and I realized, oh, it's camera too. I had to pick it.